Hello, amazing students of AG1H. We are here today to do lesson 9.1.2. We're going to continue looking at inequalities. So it says in lesson 9.1.1, you learned how to solve inequalities with one variable. Today you will focus on special inequalities and learn how you can use inequalities to solve an application problem. So 9.14, looks like we've got about 6 different inequalities here that we're going to solve. It says review what you've learned in 9.1.1 to solve the inequalities below. Represent your solutions both as an inequality and on a number line. All right, so let's get started. This first one, very simple, very straightforward. Add 7 to each side. X is going to be less than -5. So -5 on the number line, couple numbers in each direction. It's less than, so -5 is not included. So I'm gonna have an open circle. And since it's less than, I want all the numbers smaller than or less than -5. So my arrow will go to the left. All right, next one. Let's see, let's combine some like terms. Let's move the 3m to the other side. So I'm going to have 2 is less than or equal to 5m minus 8. Add 8 to each side. So now I have 10 is less than or equal to 5m. Divide each side by 5. So that gives us 2 is less than or equal to m, but you really need to list that variable first when you do your inequalities. So m is greater than or equal to 2. So 2 on the number line, couple numbers in each direction or on either side. It's greater than or equal to. So since we have the equal to, that means 2 is a solution. So we need a nice filled in circle there. Since it's greater than, we want all the numbers larger than or equal to 2. So your arrow will go to the right. Next one, let's see. Let's add 2 to each side. So I've got 2/3 p is greater than -2. Multiply each side by the reciprocal of 3/2. And that gives us p is greater than -3. Put -3 in the middle. A couple numbers on each side of the -3. It's greater than, it's not equal to, so that means the -3 is not a solution. So open circle at -3. It's greater than, so everything going to the right, or the arrows going to the right. All the numbers to the right of -3 are solutions. All right, now we're getting a little trickier here. Got to be careful with these negatives. So I've got a -3 here to distribute. So I'm going to have 2 minus 3x plus 3 is greater than or equal to x minus 7. I'm going to combine the 2 and the 3 and move this 3x all in the same step. So add 3x to each side. And then that leaves me on the left with 5 is greater than or equal to 3x minus 7. Add 7 to each side. So 12 is greater than or equal to 3x. Divide each side by 3. That leaves us with 4 is greater than or equal to x. That is not the best way to write it. Please write it with the variable listed first. So x is, oh no, I'm going to have to get a new pencil. X is greater than or x is less than, sorry about that. This pencil thing's throwing me off. X is less than or equal to 4. So right in the middle, put the 4, and then 5, 6 on the other side. Put a couple numbers. We've got the equal to sign, so that means that 4 is a solution. And then we want all the numbers less than 4. So your arrow is going to go to the right. All right. Okay. Next one. Ooh, this one's a bit of a mess, lot going on here. Let's start by combining like terms on each side. So I've got 9k minus 3 is less than or equal. And then I've got the 2k plus the 7k, so that's 9k, and then minus 3. Now, what do you notice here? Okay, do you notice that we've got the same thing on each side? 9k minus 3 is less than or equal to 9k minus 3. So what would happen here if I plug any number in? Am I always going to get a true statement? And the answer is yes, I am. Because these are the same expressions on each side, and because I've got the equal sign, I can plug anything in here and I will get a true statement. So the answer to this is all real numbers. And I don't need to go any further solving that because I notice right here that these two expressions are exactly the same. Now, if I didn't have the equal sign here, if it just said 9k minus 3 is less than 9k minus 3, would my answer still be all real numbers? And the answer to that would be no, because that wouldn't make any sense. An expression can't be less than itself. So in that case, you'd have no solution. So how do I graph that? Well, put some numbers on the number line. Okay, and then we're just going to draw a two-ended arrow. Make sure it's clear. Make sure you can see. Make sure it stands out. And this just shows that everything is a solution. So there's that. And then the last one. Well, if I look here, oh, cat in the way again. If I look here, I've got the same exact thing on each side, right? I've got, this is kind of what I was talking about over here. If this had not had the equal sign, this wouldn't make any sense. And that's the same case here. This doesn't make any sense. I can't have an expression less than itself. It doesn't make sense. And I can even, show that if I subtract 3y from each side. Now I have 1 is less than 1. Is that a true statement? Is 1 less than 1? And it's not. So that means there is no solution. Okay, and that's because that is not true. Well, how do we graph that? There aren't any solutions, so there's nothing to put on the number line. So you can just leave the number line blank like that. Some people might put the numbers on the number line like this. And then just leave it. That works too, but there's nothing to graph because there is no solution. 9:15, the United Nations. At the end of this chapter, your team will have the exciting responsibility of representing a country at a special meeting of the United Nations. The UN needs your help preparing for future large-scale disasters. You will need to help find a solution that not only works best for the country you represent, but that also accommodates the needs of each of the other countries. To prepare you for this task, the next several lessons will present daily problems to familiarize you with the important issues and concerns of other countries. Write and solve an equation that represents the problem below. Use A equals the number of member states in the African group. There are a total of 193 member states or countries in the United Nations as of 2014. The member states are divided into regional groups. Write an expression for each region. Okay, so remember, an expression does not have an equal sign. So it says the Asia group has one less member than the Africa group. So we know A is the Africa group. We want one less than that. So A minus 1 is the expression for the Asia group. Eastern Europe has 4 less than half the Africa group. So we want half of the Africa group, and then we want 4 less than that. So we need to take 4 away from it. So 1/2 A minus 4. The Western Europe group, including the US, has 6 more than Eastern Europe. Well, we just figured out Eastern Europe in the previous problem, which was 1/2 A minus 4, and then we need 6 more than that. So 1/2 A minus 4 plus 6. The Latin America group has 21 less than the Africa group. So Africa was A, 21 less than that, A minus 21. One country, Kiribati in the Central Pacific Ocean, is in no regional group at all. So we're just going to represent that with 1. It represents one country. How many countries are in each of the 5 groups? Write and solve an equation. So I need to take all of these and combine them. We know there's a total of 193. Okay, and don't forget that you need to include Africa. That's a big mistake a lot of kids make. So I'm going to need a lot of space. So A, that's for Africa, plus the A minus 1, plus the 1/2 A minus 4, plus the 1/2 A minus 4 plus 6, plus the A minus 21, and then plus 1. And that equals the 193. So you need to combine all of your like terms. And once you clean that mess up, you get 4A minus 23 equals 193. Solve your two-step equation, add 23 to each side. So you're going to end up with 4A equals 216. Divide each side by 4, and we get A equals 54. So we know that there are 54 countries in the Africa group. So it does say how many countries are in each of the 5 groups. So we need to go back and substitute this in. So we know the Africa group right here, that's 54, we just found out. So the Asia group is Africa minus 1, so 54 minus 1, that's 53. Eastern Europe, so we need half of 54, and then subtract 4 from that, and that gives us 23. The Western Europe group, half of 54 minus 4, and then plus 6 gives us 29. Latin America, we need 21 less than Africa, so 54 minus 21 is 33. And then, of course, we knew that this group only had the 1. So that is the front side. I'm going to stop the video and do a second part for the back side.